Sweden is often pictured through simple images: forests, lakes, clean design, winter darkness, and a high quality of life. But behind that calm modern image is a country with a long and complicated story. Formerly called the Kingdom of Sweden, it is a Nordic state in northern Europe, located on the Scandinavian Peninsula. It borders Norway to the west and north, Finland to the east, and looks south across the water toward Denmark. Today, Sweden is known for democracy, social welfare, innovation, and neutrality-turned-alliance. Yet for centuries it was also a military power, a Baltic empire, and a key actor in European politics. To understand Sweden, we need to connect its geography, its history, and the choices that shaped its modern society. Geography is central to Sweden's identity. With an area of about 450,295 square kilometers, Sweden is the largest Nordic country and the fifth largest country in Europe by land area. But its population is only around 10.6 million, which means much of the country is sparsely inhabited. Population density is roughly 25.5 people per square kilometer, far lower than in many parts of Europe. This creates a striking contrast. Sweden is physically large, but much of daily life is concentrated in relatively small urban zones. About 88% of Swedes live in urban areas, and those urban areas cover only about 1.5% of the country's land. In other words, Sweden is a highly urban society surrounded by an enormous natural landscape. Sweden's long north-south shape also gives it a varied climate. The country stretches from about 55 degrees north to 69 degrees north, reaching deep into the Arctic zone. Southern Sweden has milder conditions, influenced by nearby seas and more connected to continental Europe. Central Sweden contains many of the country's major population centers, including the region around Stockholm. Farther north, the landscape becomes colder, darker in winter, and less densely populated. This geography helped shape Sweden's economy and culture. The south and center became the core of agriculture, administration, and urban development, while the north became associated with forests, minerals, rivers, and energy resources. Sweden's natural environment is not just scenery, it is part of the country's economic foundation and national imagination. Human settlement in Sweden goes back thousands of years, with habitation dating to around 12,000 BC as the ice sheets retreated after the last ice age. Over time, the communities in the region developed into groups known as the Geats and the Swedes. These peoples were part of the wider Norse world, famous for seafaring, trade, raiding, and exploration during the Viking-age. The Norse were not only warriors, they were also merchants and settlers who connected Scandinavia to Britain, continental Europe, the Baltic, and beyond. Sweden's early development was deeply tied to waterways, because rivers, lakes, and seas functioned as highways. Control of trade routes and regional power centers gradually helped form the basis of a more unified Swedish state. A unified Swedish state emerged during the late 10th century, though early medieval Sweden was still shaped by regional identities, noble power, and shifting alliances. One of the most important turning points came in 1397, when Sweden entered the Kalmar Union with Denmark and Norway. This union placed the Scandinavian kingdoms under a single monarch, but it was never a simple or peaceful arrangement. For Sweden, the union often raised questions about autonomy, taxation, and Danish dominance. Tensions eventually grew into open conflict. In 1523, Sweden left the Kalmar Union under the leadership of Gustav Vasa, an event commonly treated as the birth of modern Swedish independence. This break marked Sweden's emergence as a more centralized kingdom with its own political direction. During the 17th century, Sweden transformed from a northern kingdom into one of Europe's great powers. Its major rise came during the 30 Years' War, when Sweden entered on the Protestant side. This conflict devastated much of Central Europe, but it also gave Sweden an opportunity to expand its influence. Through military success and strategic control of territory, Sweden built an empire around the Baltic Sea. At its height, the Swedish Empire controlled important lands beyond the Scandinavian Peninsula and became a dominant Baltic power. This period is sometimes surprising to people who know only modern Sweden's peaceful image. The Sweden of the 1600s was militarized, ambitious, and deeply involved in the balance of power across Europe. The Swedish Empire did not last forever. During the 18th and 19th centuries, Sweden lost most of the territories it had conquered outside the Scandinavian Peninsula. The most significant loss came in 1809, when the eastern half of the Swedish realm, present-day Finland, was lost to Imperial Russia. This was a profound shock. Finland had been part of the Swedish world for centuries, and its loss forced Sweden to rethink its role in Europe. A few years later, in 1814, Sweden fought its last direct war. By military pressure, it forced Norway into a personal union with the Swedish crown. That union lasted until 1905, when Norway peacefully became independent. Since 1814, Sweden has avoided direct participation in war, a fact that became central to its modern identity. Modern Sweden is a constitutional monarchy and a parliamentary democracy. The monarch remains the head of state, but real political power lies in democratic institutions. Legislative authority is held by the Riksdag, Sweden's unicameral parliament, which has 349 members. Sweden is also a unitary state, meaning power is ultimately organized under the national government, even though local administration is important. The country is divided into 21 counties and 290 municipalities. These local structures matter because many everyday services, from schools to care systems and planning, are delivered close to citizens. Sweden's political model combines national coordination with local responsibility, and this has helped support the country's reputation for efficient public administration and broad social trust. One of Sweden's most recognized features is its Nordic social welfare system. The Swedish model is built around the idea that citizens should have broad access to essential services, including universal health care and tertiary education. This does not mean Sweden is free from political debate or economic pressure, but it does mean that the state plays a major role in reducing insecurity. High levels of taxation are often paired with high levels of public service. The result is a society that ranks very highly in quality of life, health, education, income equality, gender equality, and protection of civil liberties. Sweden's welfare state is not just a set of benefits, it reflects a political culture that emphasizes social responsibility, individual opportunity, and public institutions. Sweden is also one of the world's most developed economies. It ranks 5th on the Human Development Index and has the world's 14th highest GDP per capita. That combination matters because it suggests not only wealth, but also strong outcomes in education, health, and living standards. Sweden's economy is often associated with competitiveness, innovation, and global brands, but its success also depends on stability, skilled workers, infrastructure, and international trade. Like other small and medium-sized European countries, Sweden has had to look outward. Its prosperity is linked to open markets, strong institutions, and the ability to adapt to technological change. The country's modern identity is therefore both social democratic and market-oriented, blending welfare protections with a highly competitive economy. Sweden's international position has changed significantly in recent decades. It joined the European Union in 1995, integrating more deeply into Europe's political and economic system. It is also part of the Schengen area, the United Nations, the Council of Europe, the Nordic Council, the World Trade Organization, and the OECD. For a long time, Sweden was known for military non-alignment, shaped by its long period without direct war. But Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 changed the security debate across Northern Europe. In response to the new security environment, Sweden joined NATO in 2024. This marked a historic shift. A country long associated with neutrality and non-alignment entered a military alliance, showing how quickly geopolitical assumptions can change. So Sweden is not just a peaceful Nordic country with forests and design. It is a large but sparsely populated European state, a former empire, a modern democracy, a welfare state pioneer, and now a NATO member. Its story moves from prehistoric settlement to Norse seafaring, from the Kalmar Union to independence, from Baltic power to post-war neutrality, and from national welfare politics to global economic competition. What makes Sweden especially interesting is the balance it has tried to maintain between nature and urban life, monarchy and democracy, markets and welfare, independence and international cooperation. Understanding Sweden means seeing how geography, history, and political choices combine to create one of the most distinctive countries in modern Europe. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.